In this video, I will attempt to outline the series and the sequence of events as made public following the death of Melissa Silvera, up to the circumstances surrounding her husband pleading guilty to manslaughter, and it being accepted by the prosecutors and the presiding judge. This is the story of how JOLYAN Silvera got away with murder.
Reach them! Always make sure the message reach them!
Melissa Silvera died on November 10, 2023 inside her 2A Diamond Court Stony Hill family home. Initial reports suggested she had died in her sleep of natural causes. She was 42 years old. Condolences streamed into JOLYAN Silvera after it was announced on the Facebook page of PNP President Mark Golding that his wife had passed away. Shortly after that message, JOLYAN reportedly told family and friends conflicting stories about how Melissa died. One such story was that she died in her sleep of a suspected aneurysm. He reportedly told others that Melissa fell while taking a shower, hit her head, and subsequently died. The lone police sergeant, who was the first lawman to visit the scene and drove his personal motor vehicle there, was transferred from the Stony Hill police station. However, it was his request for a post-mortem that blew the case open. The autopsy conducted 3 weeks later revealed the gunshot wounds, with 3 bullet fragments recovered from Melissa's body. This prompted investigators to launch a murder investigation. The matter was subsequently removed from the jurisdiction of the local police and elevated to the desk of investigators assigned to the Major Investigations Division. JOLYAN wept openly at Melissa's funeral, held on the 12th of January 2024. In a tribute read on his behalf by his mother, JOLYAN pledged to carry forward the flame of her love, ensuring that her legacy flourishes in the hearts of their sons and the countless lives she had touched. Now, a photograph taken by the officer mentioned earlier raised the concerns, and investigators carried out further checks following Melissa's funeral. They re-interviewed some of the parties who visited the house and also those who handled the body. This reportedly happened on the 14th of January 2024. The suspicions of investigators were initially aroused based on the awkward positioning of Melissa's body at the scene. It is understood that this brought into question the explanation that she died peacefully in her sleep. The photograph also contradicted Silvera's earlier statements. The same photo was shown to a particular individual who said that was not how they saw the now deceased when they arrived at the location, which at the very least said the scene was tampered with. The photo also allegedly contained items of evidential value. However, investigators have not been able to locate the critical objects captured in the image. It is understood that the individual was called to the house and allegedly carried out cleaning after the body was removed. One of the photos inadvertently picked up a spent casing on the bed. JOLYAN was arrested on Thursday the 18th of January, 6 days after Melissa was laid to rest. Silvera was preparing for a party for an aunt of his deceased wife at his house when investigators showed up. The police had questioned Silvera on 2 previous occasions as part of the probe. His licensed firearm was seized for ballistic testing. However, the police did not publicly disclose those findings at the time. Head of the JCF's Crime and Security Portfolio at the time, Deputy Commissioner Fitzbailey, said guidance was sought from the office of the DPP before Silvera was picked up. Bailey said the police had sufficient evidence to mount a viable prosecution against the former PNP representative.
On November 10, 2023, about 7 a.m., the police initially responded to what appeared to be a death investigation at the residence of JOLYAN and Melissa Silvera. After the autopsy report, it was revealed that Mrs. Silvera had not died from natural causes, but as a result of possible gunshot wounds. As a consequence, the police elevated the investigation into a murder investigation. Despite public speculation, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, in its commitment to transparency, swiftly launched a thorough investigation to address any concerns of a cover-up. For transparency to be maintained, the matter was reassigned to the Major Investigation Division, MID. Several lines of inquiry were drawn during the investigative process, and having satisfied ourselves that there is sufficient evidence to mount a viable prosecution, as a consequence, consultation was made with the offices of the Director of Public Prosecution, who concur with our findings. JOLYAN Silvera, the husband of the deceased Mrs. Melissa Silvera, has been taken into custody as a suspect in this case.
Bailey stated that the stories about the renovation of the home were factual. Investigators theorized that the scene was cleaned up and reconfigured before anyone arrived. The room was fully made over, this according to persons close to the probe. There were signs of new furniture, tiles and paint job which were allegedly not consistent with the key photographs. A mattress was also reportedly replaced. One senior PNP MP who was questioned by police reportedly said JOLYAN Silvera asked him to fund the purchase of a mattress to replace the one in the bedroom at the time Melissa was killed. The MP said he did not comply. Another source was quoted as saying everything scrubbed down. He even wiped her computer and is hiding her phone. Investigators on the 1st of February 2024 listed Sashana Miller as a person of interest who they believe could assist with the investigation surrounding Melissa's death. It is however unclear what happened with that line of inquiry or if she had reported to the police. Since his arrest and charge, JOLYAN has made multiple court appearances in which his lawyers submitted bail applications, all of which were denied. The matter was even taken to the Court of Appeal, though unsuccessfully. Fast forward to 2026, at a court sitting in January, Silvera's attorneys had applied for an independent examination of critical ballistic evidence, resulting in a delay to the proceedings. During that independent examination, forensic experts concluded that striations on the bullet fragments recovered from Melissa's body are 100% consistent with the ballistic signature of JOLYAN Silvera's licensed firearm. Investigators also found that his gun barrel appeared to have been tampered with. This was the trigger behind the about turn and guilty manslaughter plea on Monday, February 2, the day the trial was expected to get underway. Silvera was initially charged with murder and using a firearm to commit a felony. His guilty plea was accepted by prosecutors the following day, Tuesday the 3rd of February, and then by the presiding judge 2 days later on Thursday the 5th of February, at which time a sentencing date was set for the 6th of March. Since this dramatic turn of events, the office of the DPP has indicated that there wasn't enough evidence to mount a viable prosecution. In a press release, the DPP's office listed 5 reasons it took the decision. The prosecution's case was based on circumstantial evidence and ballistic findings. The prosecution had evidence of the following: 1. What occurred before Mrs. Silvera was killed. 2. What occurred after the deceased was killed. And 3. The subsequent events. The prosecution did not have evidence of what happened at the time Mrs. Silvera was killed. Having heard Mr. Silvera's account of what took place when he shot the deceased, the prosecution took the decision, after assessing the evidence and subject to the court's approval, to accept the plea to the lesser offense of manslaughter for the following reasons. 1. That there is no evidence in the prosecution's possession that can speak to what occurred at the residence when the deceased was shot and killed by the defendant. 2. Having heard Mr. Silvera's account, the prosecution would not have been able to evidentially navigate the partial defense of provocation raised by him. 3. Further, the prosecution is cognizant of the fact, in light of the account given by Mr. Silvera. Having raised a partial defense of provocation, the court would have a duty to direct the jury on the defense of provocation and the effect it would have on the count of murder, that is, to reduce it to manslaughter. At number 4, the prosecution cited case law showing precedents that where the defendant gives an account on a guilty plea that supports the offense, the court can properly accept the plea. The 5th reason proffered by the DPP was also based on case law. It cited a 1988 case dealing with the fact that a judge in a sentencing hearing should sentence the convict on the facts most favorable to the convict. The DPP argues that although Silvera's case was not at the point dealing with sentencing, the principle was applicable in that neither the prosecution nor the court could ignore the version given by Silvera, especially in circumstances where the prosecution could not disprove the account given by him. The prosecution was represented by Assistant Directors of Public Prosecutions Dwayne Green and Deborah Bryan. Prosecutors also released details of the lead-up and aftermath of the killing. The release from the DPP's office reads as follows. On the night of the second day of February 2026, the defense provided a statement, authored and signed by Mr. Silvera, to the prosecution. The statement in summary was that on the night of the 10th day of November 2023, Mr. Silvera and his wife, the deceased, had an argument which got physical. He indicated that during the argument, she blamed him, as she always did, for the death of their young son. He went on to state that during the argument, she hurled several expletives at him and made derogatory statements about his sister and mother, which he found to be provocative. He stated further that during the argument, she made a comment about their children, which he found to be the final straw, and at that point, he lost control and discharged his weapon in her direction. He stated it was not his intention to hurt or kill her that night, and that having done so, he panicked and left the apartment. He stated that over the course of the days following her death, he thought about his children losing both parents, and thus made a decision to not admit to what he had done. In the interest of justice and transparency, we have outlined the facts as constituted on the case file the DPP office said. These are those facts. Sometime after 10:30 p.m. on the 10th day of November 2023, JOLYAN Silvera told his wife, Mrs. Silvera, and the children that he was leaving to attend a meeting and that he would return the following day. Mrs. Silvera told him he could not leave and an argument ensued. This was extracted from the statement of two of the children. The adults swore at each other and then he left. Sometime before 6 a.m. on the 11th day of November 2023, one of the children, who was 10 years of age at the time, went into his parents' bedroom and discovered his mother's lifeless body on the floor next to their bed. He noticed that there was blood coming from her orifices and that her dress was covered with blood. He ran from the bedroom and alerted his brother, who accompanied him back into his parents' bedroom, where they both checked for signs of life from her body. They tried to make contact with their father using the Messenger Kid application on their digital device and were eventually successful. Mr. Silvera had indicated in a witness statement that he called the Stony Hill police station whilst on the way home after he had spoken to his son. Upon arrival at his house, Mr. Silvera went into his bedroom based on the statement from his children and saw his wife in a sitting position with her head leaning forward at the side of the bed. He touched her, spoke to her, and found that she was not responding. Sometime after, the first responder, who was an officer of the Stony Hill police station, arrived at the house and went into the bedroom where he saw the body of Melissa Silvera. He took a photograph of the body with his Samsung cellular telephone, and Mr. Silvera cried out. He had Mr. Silvera cover the nude section of the body. The first responder did not further examine the body as Mr. Silvera was still crying. The first responder, after learning from Mr. Silvera that Mrs. Silvera had no known medical conditions, indicated that a post-mortem examination would be conducted to determine the cause of death. He then contacted the House of Tranquility Funeral Home for the removal of the body. He then left when the morgue attendant arrived at the house. The body was removed and taken to the morgue. A post-mortem examination was scheduled to take place on the 1st day of December 2023. On this date, the pathologist discovered that there were scars on the body. The post-mortem examination was conducted on the 15th day of December 2023 at the Tranquility Funeral Home. The pathologist noted that there were 3 gunshot wounds, one perforating gunshot wound to the front of the right thigh, one penetrating gunshot wound to the left side of the lower abdomen, and the third is a superficial penetrating gunshot wound to the right side of the lower abdomen. The pathologist removed 2 projectiles from her body, which were handed over to the police. The pathologist opined that the immediate cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds. The detectives and the first responder returned to Mr. Silvera's home on the 16th day of December 2023. Upon entering the bedroom, it was noticed that the floor was now tiled. The furniture was sprayed over, the mattress was replaced with a new one, and the walls were painted. The children's room were also tiled. Mr. Silvera indicated that no one had told him that he could not make changes to the room. Mr. Silvera's iPhone and firearm, for which he held a license, were taken by the police for examination and testing. The projectiles removed from the body of Mrs. Silvera were compared to test fires taken from Mr. Silvera's gun by the ballistic experts in 2024. The experts saw level 1 matching, class and characteristics, and some amount of level 2 matching. As a result of his findings, the expert contacted the FLA and requested the test fires from Mr. Silvera's Glock pistol, which were taken in 2013. A comparison was done between the test fires from FLA and the projectiles from the body of the deceased, and they matched. That is, they were fired from Mr. Silvera's Glock pistol. The ballistic experts indicated that there was corrosion to the barrel of the firearm. The firearm had been inspected by FLA on the 29th of September 2023, and there were no signs of tampering. At the conclusion of the ballistics examination, Mr. Silvera was arrested and charged with the offences of using a firearm to commit a felony and murder. As the public discourse continues around the latest development, different folks will view the outcome differently. And while we await the sentencing on the 6th of March, I have heard one prominent journalist describing as a masterstroke the manslaughter plea deal presented by defense attorney Peter Champagny, while in the same breath describing it as weak and incongruous to justice the acceptance by the DPP's office headed by Claudette Thompson. Others view it as a good outcome for the crown, stating that you can go to trial on what appears to be compelling circumstantial evidence and the jury says not guilty. So in their mind, a guilty plea to a lesser offense, especially in circumstances where the only direct eyewitness apart from the accused is a dead victim, is a great outcome. Meanwhile, the DPP and the Chief Justice are being raked over the coals by many citizens who views the developments as a gross miscarriage of justice, and that it solidifies the notion that there are two sets of laws in Jamaica, one for the rich and one for the poor. Irrespective of your views on the situation, that, my friends, is how JOLYAN Silvera got away with murder.
Teach them! Always make sure the message reach them!